Hello, everybody, and welcome to How California Works. I'm Chris Nicholson.
And I'm Eric Johnson. And yes, welcome to the first episode of our new podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the growing threat of wildfires and three programs informed by fire science and funded by state and local governments that are helping vulnerable communities protect themselves. I want to start at the scene of the worst wildfire in California history, the Camp Fire, which destroyed the town of Paradise, California, and killed 85 people in November of 2018. On May 8th, 2019, exactly 6 months after the Camp Fire erupted, I was invited to witness the devastation on a tour with the California Board of Forestry and Fire Prevention. This is a group of 9 individuals who are responsible for setting the state's forest management policy. They were in Paradise to hear from CAL FIRE officials about what led to the event and to get a status report. Needless to say, it was a devastating scene. But one thing stood out to me as most remarkable. While the megafire leveled 90% of the homes and other buildings in this small city, most of the trees were still standing. Paradise today is being rebuilt, and the homes rising from the ashes are designed to withstand wildfire, and that's what we're here to talk about today. What follows is drawn from an explainer published on our website, California Local. Today, we're going to be talking about how you and your neighbors can work together to make your neighborhoods more resilient to wildfire. As fire season approaches in California, three phrases are appearing in news outlets throughout the state: fire-adapted communities, fire-wise communities, and fire-safe councils. These terms describe government programs and best practices developed with the aim of fostering wildfire-resilient neighborhoods. Let's start by defining some terms. Chris, what's a fire-adapted community?
Sure. A fire adapted community is one that follows a set of best practices developed by the U.S. Fire Administration, or USFA, which is part of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. These best practices are focused on protecting homes and other structures in the wildland-urban interface zone, which has its own acronym, WUI, and pronounced WUI.
For those unfamiliar with the term, the wildland-urban interface is a transition zone between unoccupied wilderness land and land developed for human habitation or activity. Houses and other structures in the WUI face significant and increasing risk from wildfire.
Boy, do they. So, a fire-adapted community in the WUI is one that follows the 7 steps prescribed by the USFA. Number 1, form a collaboration of community stakeholders. That means get together with your neighbors because it's a community-wide effort. Number 2, identify community risks, such as, say, areas of tall dead grass or piles of dead brush. Number 3, create a written risk assessment. How likely is it that the tall dead grass or dead brush will catch fire? 4, identify actionable steps like cut the dead grass and remove the dead brush. 5, build partnerships to help with the action plan. That's people to help cut the dead grass and haul away the dead brush. Number 6, execute the action plan. Hey, everybody, it's Community Work Day. Number 7, update and maintain the action plan. Rinse and repeat. There's always dead grass to cut and dead and flammable stuff to dispose of.
Okay, so fire-adapted communities and neighborhoods are places in the WUI that follow the U.S. Fire Administration's best practices to reduce the risk of wildfire. What are fire-wise communities?
The Firewise program is administered by a nonprofit organization founded in Boston in 1895, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA. Their mission is essentially to make a safer world. Right on. They do this by advocating for uniform building codes and standards, conducting research, and offering professional training and education. Firewise communities can apply for recognition from the NFPA that can make homeowners in the certified community eligible for discounts on fire insurance, and this can include access to the state-run California Fair Plan. Now, there are currently more than 800 Firewise certified communities in California, with that number increasing rapidly.
Being eligible for discounts on fire insurance policies is a great perk of being Firewise certified.
Yeah, it sure is, but the perk of not having your home burned down is also pretty perky.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Moving on, we've taken care of fire-adapted communities and fire-wise communities. What are fire-safe councils?
All right, fire safe councils. They're nonprofit organizations operating throughout California. Their mission is basically to promote the creation and maintenance of local firewise communities. They offer services and small amounts of funding to help these communities implement the fire adapted best practices and also assist in the creation and maintenance of neighborhood access and evacuation routes. The California State Fire Safe Council was incorporated in 2002 and acts as a grants distribution clearinghouse to the local and county fire safe councils.
Now, here's an interesting fact. The best practices in forming the strategies used in fire adapted communities are based on experimental research conducted by fire scientists just back in the 1990s about precisely how structures catch fire during wildfires.
Yeah, that's right. Measures to mitigate wildfire risk concentrate on three concentric fire ignition zones surrounding homes or other structures.
Okay, so what is the first zone?
Zone 0 is the structure itself and an area of 5 feet around it. Effort here is focused on keeping rain gutters free of flammable debris, such as leaves and pine needles, keeping the area under decks free of flammable stored or accumulated materials, and plugging gaps under eaves and screening all the vents. The use of non-combustible materials for roofs and sidings is strongly recommended or required by some building codes. Clearing of landscaping immediately around the structure and replacing it with cement walkways or gravel is also recommended.
Because fire scientists found most structures were ignited by flying embers, California law, passed in 2020, mandates that this zone be hardened to be ember resistant in high and very high fire hazard severity zones. Tell us about the next zone.
Sure, Zone 1 is the area of 5 to 30 feet around the structure. The focus here is on hardened landscaping and fire breaks. Steps you should take include removing low branches from trees, trimming lawns and native grasses to a maximum height of 4 inches, and removing any ladder fuels from under trees. Trees should be spaced a minimum of 18 feet between crowns and no closer than 10 feet from structures.
Okay, well, tell us about the last zone.
So recall that Zone 0 is the structure and the area 5 feet around it, and Zone 1 is the area 5 to 30 feet around the structure. So Zone 2 is the area extending from 30 to 100 feet around the structure. The goal is to interrupt the path of the fire and keep flames smaller and on the ground. Accumulations of ground litter and debris and dead plants and trees are removed. Small conifers growing between taller trees are removed, and trees are thinned so there is a clearance of 12 feet between canopies.
Fire hardening, or making a property more fire resilient, isn't only about protecting structures. It's also about protecting the firefighters who may ultimately be tasked with saving a home. Taken together, the hardening of the 3 fire ignition zones creates a defensible space in which firefighters may safely operate to tackle threats to structures and people. California law mandates that in state responsibility areas, defined as lands protected by CAL FIRE, landowners maintain a 100-foot defensible space around structures. Creating and maintaining defensible space by thinning and removing trees and clearing brush and other wildfire fuels can be pretty expensive.
Boy, that's for sure. Following the massive die-off of trees due to drought and bark beetle infestation that began more than a decade ago, property owners in forested areas faced heavy costs in maintaining the defensible space around homes and other structures. The state responded by allocating more money to fire-safe councils and county and local agencies. That funding, in turn, covers things like free chipping services to property owners to process piles of branches and other flammable waste, and the removal and disposal of dead trees and vegetation. It also covers the cost of fuel reduction projects such as creating and maintaining shaded fire breaks along access and evacuation routes.
Please tell us about these shaded fire breaks.
Sure, they're a wide strip of land adjacent to a county or state maintained road which is cleared of underbrush and ladder fuels. Dead trees are cut down and removed. Smaller trees with trunk diameters under 4 or 6 inches are also cut down and removed. And the larger trees are kept, but the lower branches are removed. These fire breaks reduce the risk of wildfire trapping, evacuating residents, or blocking incoming firefighters along access and egress routes.
That, as we saw in the campfire, that can be super important. And I guess they call them shaded fire breaks because they leave the taller trees.
Yeah, so it's not like a fire break where they just bulldoze down everything.
Right, right, right. Okay. Okay, well, let's wrap up by noting that as the length of wildfire season grows and the encroachment of development into wildland extends, the web of programs informed by fire science, funded by state and local agencies, has become a literal lifesaver.
It sure has. Now, if you live in the WUI and are not already part of a Firewise community, there's no better time to step up and lead the effort to coordinate with your neighbors and local agencies and start the work of adapting your neighborhood and getting certified.
Okay, thanks, Chris, and thank you all for joining us. We are California Local, and this has been How California Works. You can find us on the web at californialocal.com, and you can learn more about making your community fire resilient by visiting the CAL FIRE Wildfire website at readyforwildfire.org.